Support for the show comes from World Gone Wrong. World Gone Wrong is a cozy chat show hosted by best friends Malik and Jamie, set in a wildly fictional world. These two aren't afraid to dig into the most pressing and most difficult topics, including but not limited to, what do I do if my ex-boyfriend gets taken over by an alien body snatcher? We've all been there. How worried should I be about sewer alligators reading maps in downtown Chicago? Should I change my office hours to accommodate the vampire student in my class? It only seems fair. And hey, what's the deal with that guy showing up in all of our old pictures? Blah. As we know all too well here at Buffering the Vampire Slayer, living through the apocalypse is hard, but it's easier with friends. Learn more at audaciousmachinecreative.com. World Gone Wrong releases bi-weekly on Tuesdays.
Hi, Alba.
Hello.
Hi, Alba.
Hi.
Wow.
It's so good to be back.
It's been so long. It's been too long.
It's been a lifetime, it feels.
I know. Well, rumor has it you're going to join us again for TED, so we don't have to wait nearly as long.
Oh my God, yes. My childhood trauma will come to fruition. Yes, I'm so excited for TED.
But before we get to robotic potential stepdads, we have Incan Mummy princesses, and we emailed you at the start of season 2 and said, tell us some of your episodes that you might want. TED was number 1. Number 1. But this was on your list, and we're really thrilled to have you for a variety of reasons. You put together an incredible list of things you wanted to talk about, and some of them I knew to expect, and some of them I was like, oh my God, I didn't even see this one coming, and this is fantastic. So welcome. And if you want, grab the mic, run with it.
Jump in.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, no pressure. All right. Get back in my podcast zone. As I was telling you guys before, I've just been in like deep academia, like theory. And I'm like, oh yeah, people like laugh. People just like talk.
Times.
Well, do you want to tell us?
Fun.
Do you want to give us a bit of a setup? I mean,
sure.
I'm sure that in the pod proper, we will talk for those who are new to once more with spoilers about your coming to the pod and your role with us. But for those of our listeners who don't know what you've been up to since we last heard from you in the buffering feed, do you want to? You said academia. So what are you doing?
Yes, I'm doing my master's. I have very mixed feelings about it. Right now I live in the capital of Canada. I also have mixed feelings about that, but what are you going to do? And I'm writing my thesis about, drumroll, Bridgerton. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Got to contain like way more bodices than any other thesis.
Yes, and wigs.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so my thesis is called Decoding Colonial Love in the Bridgerton series, Shondaland's Bridgerton. So I'm looking at, representation. What is representation? What do we think about representation? Who writes representation? It's really an extension of the work that I was doing with you guys on Buffy. And my mom was even like, why aren't you just writing about Buffy? And I was like, I did it already. I did that. Look at something else.
Done that one. We need a new text. Yeah.
So I'm really looking at like the interracial relationships, the dynamics of interracial relationships, especially like between a person of color and a white person, and just kind of all the, the propaganda that people of color can just be inserted into Regency era England and not discuss the horrifying things that England was doing to said communities at the time. And just like contextualizing all of that, really. But, Bridgerton.
Friggin' brilliant.
Thank you.
Brilliant over there. It's really exciting and wonderful to have gotten to work with you a couple of years ago, for several years, and then to like see all the things that you're doing now. It's pretty fucking cool, Alba.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Yeah. And I'm sure I'm sure a lot of the buffering crew is gonna want to read that thesis. I don't know if you're gonna
I know.
open it up
I might
to...
publish, maybe.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah.
And then I was in Nunavut. I was in the Arctic teaching children about them.
When we first reached out, because I think we chatted in season 1, right? We tried to make something work in season 1, but you were like, hi, I'm in the middle of the literal Arctic right now, not sure I'm gonna be able to record a podcast. But your time in the Arctic, because obviously there are glaring things to talk about in Incan Mummy Girl. So many. I'm sure we won't get to them all, but something that you have literal exact personal experience with is the costume that Willow is wearing at the dance where everyone should come dressed as a culture. Cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we'll just go in the order of what I wrote down.
Yes, let's go in the order.
So, as I started watching this episode, it starts with like their little cultural exchange or like walking down, and Buffy's like, ugh, how awful. And the whole thing felt so like American to watch. And I'm like, what do you mean? Ew. Like, what do you mean? I don't understand this inconvenience of having something different in your life, And I think it was interesting to hear to hear your first take on the podcast. You guys were both talking about your experiences in high school. And I had also like cultural exchange, quote unquote, stuff. But we were supposed to bring things from our own countries. So like, yeah, I don't know. I brought cupcakes with another friend of mine. Like I would bring like arepas or something from Venezuela. But, people brought roti or like curry or different things like that. And then they would explain things about their own country and their own culture. And sometimes people wore like traditional clothing. But it wasn't like a huge thing, not the way that it is in this episode of this show. Was it a big thing for you guys?
Honestly, there was a huge, I know that there was a huge cultural exchange fair at my school, and you saying that does ring some bells for me, that folks would there were folks who would bring in things from their culture, and the goal, the aim was for us to learn about other cultures. But I am nearly certain that it edged way further into the Buffy of it all, into this place of pick a culture and represent it, than the other route, which is hey, if there are folks who would like to share about their own actual lived culture, bring that to the table and let's learn about it holistically and actually think about it to use your word, contextually. And so forth. That it was much more right, we're a melting pot kind of a vibe.
Yes. And I think, the work that I did with you guys on Buffy before, and the work that I have continued to do and learn so much more about, is who is considered human in this realm, right? The humanization of people. And these cultural exchanges our audience, the target audience is the white people who live in the United States, right? Or in Canada or in whatever X country. It's not really let's share cultures. It's how do we absorb your culture? And maybe let's try to see that you're a human being at the same time, but not really. And definitely not this episode, right? That the amount of dehumanization that happens in this episode is the cup overfloweth with the amount of,
not the cup you want to overflow it.
No, with racism. And it really comes down to, I think these characters were written poorly. Not that these characters individually said a bad thing or did something wrong. I think to me, it's clear, and it's so interesting because I've personalized these fictional characters so much, but I'm Buffy would never say that, Willow would never say that. Even Cordelia, I don't know that she would really, and maybe, this is 2025 thinking about these characters now, but I just, even then, I think we're really seeing the representation of whatever older writers were in the room, white people for sure, and looking at how they would have interacted with these things. So just like white consumption of quote unquote culture, right? And this has been like such a theme of the 90s and the 2000s. I don't know about the 80s, but I feel like it really popped off in like the 90s, 2000s of like culture, melting pot, like, ooh, we are one. But it's not really looking at those people and looking at what is, you know, your history, like what, like learning about, the history, the culture, like genuinely from a genuine point of view, because we know culture is more than food. I mean, I think it is a unifying factor and everybody loves to eat, but you know, I think it's more than that. And that's lacking significantly in this episode and in our culture in general, like in that culture in general.
Yeah. I feel like being generous, like if I was to guess how these fictional students went about preparing for this event, I'm thinking their social studies textbook that like centers on this unit for them has like a paragraph about just like a random selection of various representatives from around the globe that are like certainly from the perspective of the people putting the book together, who I'm just going to go ahead and guess are white. And if I was just going to guess, and like are trying to like cram a ton of information into a very very condensed form. So like, I mean, and that's like, and that might just be way too generous of an imagining of like how we got to this dance.
Yeah, I think like anthropology in general is a really questionable field, and it's having a lot of reckoning within itself. Like anthropologists know this. We know that this is like, ooh, what's that, you know? And I think that wasn't even a question at the time. So for sure in their little social studies section on anthropology or whatever, then they would have had, you know, some very reductionist, othering description of these humans, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it is exactly not only what you're saying here in this episode, and about cultural exchange, that it is essentially for white people. But it's also a lot of, you know, you went back and you listened to our initial episode. We did not, because, oh God. But I don't even know what's in there. I don't even know if but
it's cute. No, you did good.
Oh,
honestly.
thank God. But like so much of the work that we all did together in the space was really understanding that concept, that like we are not here to simply educate our white listenership, right? That it's really easy to like point at the cultural exchange program at my high school and be like, well, that was clearly for white people. But it's like, we do this, we're doing this.
Bridgerton is doing that.
Bridgerton is doing that. I mean, you know, it's more instinctive than you'd imagine it to be. And so, you know, I just think that there's a parallel to the work that we were doing as well together here, to really think about that it's not just like, oh, and now all the white people at this high school can like learn what this Indian dish is like. You know, it's like, well, okay, what are the students of color getting from the cultural exchange fair or dance or program? So yeah,
we didn't see any. Yeah, which is interesting, right?
Students
featured in
not a one. Yeah,
not one. And I think like in general, kind of moving to my next point, what's interesting about the representation of, you know, culture in this episode and just in general is indigeneity, like thinking about indigeneity big time, where, you know, it's an Incan princess. Those people still exist. Like the descendants of those people still exist in Peru. Quechua people, they still have a language. It's still like a very thriving culture. And, you know, the Inuit costume that Willow dresses up as, the Hawaiian costume that Cordelia dresses up as, like it's a lot of representations that, like you guys mentioned, I didn't catch it when I watched it, but there's a Native American, like an indigenous, like Northern indigenous costume at the fair, at the dance. So there's just a lot, like when we think about culture, when we think about these countries, especially at that time, we think about their indigenous roots, right? We think about them before colonization. We think about like not like evolution, time.
Mhm.
So, and like that is the disrespect that is very blatant in this episode, is there's just like no regard for not only like the people of those cultures or those countries, but the fact that those countries were like brutally colonized and those people have no agency or autonomy. And that's still a very, very big problem for all of those people who still exist, right? So that really stuck out to me.
Yeah, that not only did we come and uproot your culture and your land, but now we are going to dress up in what we believe to be your costume, because it really is like a costume in that sense. And say like, look, I learned. It's like, just fucked up all the way
Crazy.
down. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really dark if you think hard about it. Like
I mean, not that colonization itself isn't dark, it is, but then when you lay on top of that, those very people putting on it's fucking dark.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I did a little bit of research into the Incan mummies, because I know that those are the oldest recorded, not the one that she's based on. She's based on a real mummy, which I didn't know.
Yeah,
Juanita. Yeah, Juanita, the Lady of Ampato. So they were like actually Ampata. I think they were making like a direct reference. So Ampato is the volcano that she was found in. And there's again like this barbarism aspect of just like, oh, these people sacrificed humans, and oh no, like just the evilness of these ancient cultures when people have been being sacrificed everywhere. The witches were burned at the stake for many years, I think especially right now these days, like we understand that white people have done like the most barbaric things in the world, like truly. But the representation is that it's people of color who do all the barbaric things and need saving, right?
Mhm.
Or correcting or
teaching,
extinguishing or teaching or extinguishing. And so it's interesting because what they did is they made these sacrifices. They were always like nobility, children of nobility, and they were chosen for like their perfection and as gifts for the gods. And it's different depending on the region because there were different sacrifices on the region. And as you guys talked about in the first run of this episode, like South America is massive. It is huge. So I can't even like get to like language and like the pictograms and everything.
Oh my God,
because
the pictograms sent me on this watch. I don't know if we went into it the first time, but the pictograms fucking sent me. You can read this, right?
Yeah. No, you did. You did. No, it doesn't make any sense. And see, this is where I'm like, Giles would know that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Giles knows that South America is a massive continent.
My God. I feel like it's worth noting that this episode was written by Matt Keat and Joe Rankmeyer, who I don't think they ever wrote an episode before or after. So just a point of consideration, Giles like is being ignorant to something that he would definitely have a handle on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Your point about how the characters are written in this episode.
Yeah. The indigenous people there are not happy that the mummies have been removed from their resting places. Yeah. And also like there's concern that who is profiting from those mummies being circulated, and is that money going to the indigenous people who definitely need it? I didn't do too much research into that, so it's possible that they are, but it's questionable, right? Like burial grounds, like how would we feel if 500 years from now we started other people started digging up our loved ones, like, and then putting them in museums for other people to look at, especially in like religious, like this is like a very religious thing too. In times of like famine or drought, they would sacrifice the children to the gods. And then those children were honored and they thought that they lived like a really beautiful life in the afterlife and lived amongst the gods and like were able to communicate between the humans, and they lived in this like liminal spirit space. So like, it's not just, oh, they killed their children, but it's a more in-depth thing. And And I think that that's important to note.
Doesn't that just go to like the humanization of it all? Because if you were
Exactly.
humanizing Indigenous folks, if you were humanizing people of color, then your logical brain would give you the knowledge that who would simply just like you would just you're not just going to kill somebody or like, but because you don't humanize, when you don't humanize, then it's easy to just be like, oh, well, you know, it was these folks over here in this place that we don't understand, and they do these wild things that we could never imagine doing. You have to dehumanize to believe that.
Yeah. And that narrative of Indigenous people, like human sacrifices, especially in South America and then like the Pacific Islands, is huge, right? Like it's a massive propaganda that has been very harmful.
Yeah.
So here that's kind of the background of it. And it's simply not quite true in that way.
I'm going to imagine that we have folks in our listenership who are museum adjacent, who maybe work in places where they can write in and tell us more. My guess, my hunch, having simply lived in this country for the last 44 years, is that if anything is going back to Indigenous folks or anything like that, it has happened very recently, and it is probably still an ongoing active conversation. And I think at the time of this, I would be I could never imagine that was happening in the 90s.
Yeah. So she was found in 95. And then there was like 3 other mummies that are even older that were found in 99. And those were like big. That was like a big thing. Yeah.
It can be overwhelming to manage a business, especially when you're first starting out. Your to-do list just keeps growing every day with new tasks, and that list can easily begin to overrun your life. Finding the right tool not only helps you out, but can simplify problems you haven't even encountered yet. And for millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, and 10% of all e-commerce in the US, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands just getting started. With hundreds of ready-to-use templates, Shopify can help you easily build a beautiful online store to match your brand style. And best yet, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns and beyond. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/realm. Go to shopify.com/realm. Shopify.com/realm.
Hi, I'm here to tell you about Good Morning Night Vale. Welcome to Night Vale's official recap show and unofficial best friend food podcast. Join me, Meg Bashwiner, and fellow tri-hosts Hal Lublin and Symphony Sanders as we dissect all of the cool, squishy, and slimy bits of every episode of Welcome to Night Vale. Come for the insightful and hilarious commentary, and stay for all of the weird and wild behind-the-scenes stories. Good Morning Night Vale, with new episodes every other Thursday. Get it wherever you get your podcasts. Yes, even there.
But my next point is the kind of that. Well, I'll just talk about like the slur that's used for the Inuit people in the costume that Willow wears. And yeah, don't say that word. Yeah. It's interesting because I was there, and, you know, they do use it and they have different comfortability, just as like anybody does with a slur, I think, of like, oh yeah, it's cool if you say that, or no, it's not okay if you say that. Yeah. But the way that someone that I met explained it to me is like that slur is how the white people describe us, and Inuit is a word I describe for myself. Mm-hmm. Or Inuk is also one person, and then Inuit is a group of Inuks.
I have something for this.
Yeah.
Because I was looking over your notes and doing a little Googling in advance. And I was like, oh, what is exactly like the root? And it's like, as you say, but there's a word for it. It's an exonym.
Oh.
An endonym is a common native name for a group of people, individual person, geographical place, language, or dialect. And the exonym is the opposite. It's like what anyone from outside of that region, culture, population refers
Oh,
to them as.
yes.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
They have a name for white people. The word means thick eyebrows, round belly.
I love thick eyebrows.
I know.
Eyebrows.
Thick eyebrows, round
Thank
belly.
you.
Yeah. It's the best.
Oh my
Um,
God.
Yeah.
But, you were saying though, in addition to the like words that we have used here that we do not use anymore, and so on and so forth, there's also the wardrobe choices that Willow makes as well.
Yeah.
Right, which are not.
I wonder like what culture that's from, because maybe it's from like a different northern culture, maybe more like North Russia or something, like yeah. But what I saw, like of the pictures and the films and the videos that I saw, that is not accurate. No. Also, she's not even wearing real fur, so crazy.
I mean, I feel like as a child of the 90s, as a white child of the 90s, it was very easy to just be like, and you just put like any hood with fur on it is automatically like that's the garb.
Yeah.
Yeah. No research done or felt needed at all.
Or just like somebody who went there made something that maybe was warm, but was like designed for a European in that area versus what those people actually would have worn at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. When they go hunting, they use caribou clothing, which is literally made out of caribou. The coat that I brought was not warm enough. I was very upset about that. And my boots were not warm enough and my snow pants were not warm enough. But that's okay. They were very generous and like,
I was going to say, did you get any loaners?
Yeah, I did.
Good.
And like they use real fur, of course, and it's beautiful. And of course, you can't not use real stuff because actually the synthetic things will freeze and break. So that, it's that cold. Yeah. And they have beautiful, like their fashion is coats. Like their fashion is like winter gear and they make them and and then when they're hunting, if they're out like on the land, then they're literally wearing like a polar bear's legs as pants.
How long were you there?
I was there for 2 months. I was in Iqaluit for 1 month, which is like the capital. It's like a little city, but it's a very like there's like one paved road in the town. There's no street lights. Like it's wild. And then I went really, really, really far north, like almost the furthest you can go north. The temperatures reach minus 98 or 99. Like it's like, yeah. With the wind chill.
Did you see?
No, I did not experience that.
Did you see a polar bear?
I did not. And I learned actually that you're not supposed to talk about them. This is like a very big rule. You're not supposed to talk about them because they can hear you and they will come for you.
Even here or just when you're up that
far?
There.
There. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to
wanted
to make sure because we are
I don't think they
talking about them right now. So.
No, but the first day that I got there, I was like, oh, I want to see a polar bear. And then one of the guys was like, have they told you that you can't talk about that? And I was like,
wow.
No. And he was like, yeah. So, and then they started telling me all these stories about people who had like said that and then literally left like the next day. They were like, came face to face with a polar bear and was like, actually, bye.
Wow.
But I did see a polar bear being skinned after it was hunted.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
That sounds...
You see any animals that you are allowed to talk about not being skinned, but just chilling?
Yes. I saw an Arctic fox a couple times. Yeah. Really pretty. Really, really pretty. I ate whale.
Whoa.
How did it taste?
Kind of indescribable. Like nothing else that you would ever really taste. Like also each whale tastes different. So I tried narwhal.
Whoa.
And you cut it with like a special knife. It's called an ulu. And with soy sauce, you can eat it just like raw or with soy sauce. I also learned that killer whales, you cannot kill them. It's too dangerous to kill them because as they are dying, they will send a image of you and send it to their family. And then their family will hunt you.
They're just built in email. They have email. They're like,
Yeah, they have
blue blop,
Bluetooth.
send Bluetooth. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that wild?
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I feel like you are just describing like the next A24 like elevated horror.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That is so chilling.
Oh, but also so
actually-
fucking awesome for like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? For the defense of whales. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they're definitely taking the yachts down on purpose. Like, let's be
Yeah.
so for real.
Oh, yeah. Fuck yeah.
But for anyone who wants to learn or like see kind of what it's like, I watched the recent True Detective, like the latest one with Jodie Foster.
Mhm.
Did you guys see it?
No.
It's good. It's really good. And it's in Alaska.
Oh, cool.
And as I was watching it, I was like, this is pretty accurate. I had like just come back.
Amazing.
And it's pretty gay.
I mean, Jodie Foster's in it, so.
She's not gay in it,
But like,
even though like
Jodie Foster in it?
yeah.
yeah. And there's some like supernatural. So honestly, it might be a good little side watch for you.
sidebar,
A little Patreon watch. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I would love to. I would very genuinely love to watch it.
Yeah. And then my last point that, you know, has always stuck out to me was the fetishization of Ampada. And I'm South American. I have heard, oh my God. I had one boyfriend once, the first time that we made out, he was like, oh, you're such a spicy Latina. Literally said that to me.
Oh.
Yeah. And I like stopped and was like, don't fetishize me. Like, what the hell? And he was like, oh, this was back in, I don't know, 2016 or something.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it's like the fetishization of people is so real and also exhausting, like truly exhausting. And I read this article about it again because of my research with Bridgerton, and fetishization is kind of this interesting form of racism because it comes in the form of compliment and it comes in the form of desire. And so it lives in this like special place, you know, but it is ultimately harmful, right? Again, it's dehumanizing. Again, it's objectifying. Like it's not seeing people as people in their multitudes or removed from performance.
Well, and
It's
we
not
only get apart from the character who is named Peru Man, which is really great for everybody. But apart from him, we only get white eyes on Ampada, both in the show, but also I'm certain, I mean, we know in the writer's room, but I'm sure, you know, director, camera, like, you know what I mean? We're getting that from like every angle with this character. And not to mention poor boy Ampada, who like is here and then.
Yeah. But it's something to examine, I think, for people, for everyone to just think about.
Yeah, and I think what you said about the fact that it comes packaged in like a hard quotes positive is something really important because it's really easy, I think, to recognize. Well, I shouldn't say it's really easy, but you know, for many folks, it's easier to recognize racism when it is packaged as a negative, right? Like we don't want you here, get out, blah 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 blah. Like that's more nameable and more visible. But I think these are the places where it's easier as a white person to say like, but I meant no harm. Like but I'm saying I fill in the good vibes of it all. And it's really just the same thing packaged differently.
Yeah. And it's just still rampant. I don't know.
I mean,
go on and on.
You said 2016 stories. Like it was so long ago. 2016 is
yeah, it's not that long ago.
Basically.
Yeah.
You know, like that is not that long ago.
No, it's not. But I do think things have changed quite a bit since then.
Yeah.
One, I would never date a guy like that.
They were just going to hard stop there. One, I would never date a guy.
I know, I almost did. I was like,
I also think it's just like double yuck. Like while we're here yucking, why not have an extra bonus yuck that like the on-ramp of Xander's like sort of fetishization gaze is that like he begins the episode by trying to exert control over Buffy being around a boy who isn't him. So we start there and then you just get like a really hard shift into a whole other yuck. And we can always rely on Xander.
There was actually the question that, and I was thinking about this as I was watching the episode. I was thinking about this for the past couple of days. Like, you asked me if I would rewrite it, like how would I write it?
Yeah.
That's a really hard question.
It's really fair for your answer to be like, I would crumple the whole thing up and throw it in the garbage. But like, yeah.
That was my first instinct, right? And also just like the extension of the dehumanization to her body being like literally torn apart and then like crumpled. And that's a pattern with people of color and buffering, which we talked about at length in the past, of just this like true desecration of the physical body of people of color.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I could rewrite it, I think it's so hard because no matter what, it's going to be kind of wrong. I'm like, Buffy should be Indigenous. Like that should be it, or, she has one of the, Willow is Indigenous or Xander is Indigenous. And then they are encountering maybe a different side of their culture because there was communication between the Indigenous people in North America and South America before colonization. Like there's proof, like they had travel, they had trade, there was stuff happening here before the white people got here,
I don't know, Alba. That doesn't sound right.
I know it's crazy. It's crazy, but this is something I've learned by spending time in Indigenous communities, is that there's proof, and they had like a feather from a bird in South America. How did that feather get here?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So I think I would have it be like a lot more wholesome and have it be, how do you encounter your culture? Maybe it's more like a more spiritual journey. The whole, a mummy is fun though, right? That's the thing. It's like a mummy is fun. So how do you keep a mummy and make it not extremely problematic? Like maybe the mummy's spirit is in limbo or something, and there's like a connection, and maybe it's not the physical body that comes alive and is like evil, or maybe the mummy comes alive and like helps them, you know what I mean? Like helps them solve some other problem, and then as they like help the mummy go back to its original resting place, something like that.
Well, and even making one of the main characters, or even just a character in the episode, like you're saying, an Indigenous character takes some of the focus away from the only Indigenous character in the episode being the mummy. Like I feel like your take on like, if Buffy or Xander or Willow or was a character who was Indigenous and having this direct interaction, then we also get to follow that character outside of the mummy storyline.
Yeah, and have more pre-colonial culture and information included and celebrated. I think that's kind of the route I would try to take. I think it's a puzzle for sure, because I think representation is hard. Like, let's be real. Like, representation is difficult because of the system we exist within. So it's not, it's hard to do ethically and responsibly and not fall into like any ism or any fetishization or any, like, it's very difficult to do that. And that's not because it's difficult to represent those people. It's just difficult to represent them through the lens of a system that has colonized them.
Have you seen Res Dogs? Any of Res Dogs?
No, but it's been recommended to me.
It's so good, and there's it's a very different context, but there's sort of like a character who's like the spirit guide who appears to one of the teens, and like it's a very different track, but it is similar to like if there's an Indigenous character, I mean, on Res Dogs, it's like it's written by Indigenous folks, and that they're in the writer's room, they're on screen, they're et cetera, but the relationship between the like teen and this guy who's like just completely like, it's a really hilarious character, and it is so powerful because it's not just one thing, it's like 50 things all at once, because of course it's coming not out of a white writer's room, but
and it's multiple Indigenous people interacting with each other, right? And that's so rare to see, even still. Like, it's so rare to see people of color, anyone who's not white, interacting with each other at their own cultural level that has nothing to do with whiteness. That's still just not very common. That's what we need more of, really.
So we solved it.
Yeah, we fixed it.
I will recommend. Sorry, Jenny, go ahead.
No, I was done.
I will recommend North of North, which is a Canadian show that came out recently about Nunavut, and it's really cute. It's like,
great.
It's a comedy. It's has more difficult issues, but it's also just, I recommend it.
Awesome. We'll put a link in the show notes too for folks to check it out.
Awesome.
I'm really glad that you're coming back soon.
Me too.
Yes. It's just so delightful to see you and to get to hear from you. Thank you for sharing all of this with us.
You're
as
so
always.
welcome.
Thank you.
Am I smarter now?
Thank you for taking time out of your academic quest to talk to us on this very sort of lowest common denominator.
Hey, but we also helped you remember you can laugh and have a good
time.
No, I really needed it actually, because the writing cathesis is hard, bro.
I wouldn't do it again. I'll tell you what. Once was enough for me.
None was enough for me.
None was enough for Jenny. All right. Well, we will talk to you again soon. For those of you who don't already know and love Alba, you can learn more about her in the show notes, of course. And Alba, we'll see you again soon.
Yeah. Much love, everybody.
You know what that sounds like to me? White supremacy. Woven in not too subtly. White supremacy. Open your eyes and that's where you'll find it. Crush that white supremacy.
Hi, I'm here to tell you about Good Morning Night Vale. Welcome to Night Vale's official recap show and unofficial best friend food podcast. Join me, Meg Bashwiner, and fellow tri-hosts Hal Lublin and Symphony Sanders as we dissect all of the cool, squishy, and slimy bits of every episode of Welcome to Night Vale. Come for the insightful and hilarious commentary, and stay for all of the weird and wild behind-the-scenes stories. Good Morning Night Vale, with new episodes every other Thursday. Get it wherever you get your podcasts. Yes, even there.
Douglas Adams, the genius behind The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, was more than a comic author. He was a disruptive thinker, a satirist, an explorer of the absurd, and a futurist par excellence. My name is Arvind Ethan David. I was lucky to know and work with Douglas Adams. My new audiobook, Douglas Adams' The Ends of the Earth, is an immersive journey through the mind of one of the most visionary thinkers of our time. You'll hear never-before-heard recordings from his personal archive, new readings of his work, and interviews with those who knew and loved him best. From Stephen Fry to David Baddiel and Griff Rhys-Jones, to leading economists, planetary scientists, and even zoologists. Get Douglas Adams' The Ends of the Earth now at pushkin.fm/audiobooks or wherever audiobooks are sold. And don't forget your towel.